I caught my husband with the nanny. She's pregnant. The house was too quiet. Not the peaceful kind of quiet. Not the soft afternoon silence that wraps around you like a warm blanket. This was a suffocating quiet. The kind that presses against your ears and makes your heart beat louder than it should. I remember thinking it was strange. Daniel was supposed to be at work. The nanny, Sophie, usually took Emma to the park around this time. The kitchen clock ticked with unnatural sharpness as I stepped inside, my heels clicking against the marble floor. "Hello?" I called softly. No answer. I set my purse down and loosened the scarf around my neck. I had come home early to surprise Daniel. Our anniversary was tomorrow. I had finally decided to stop being suspicious. To stop letting that ugly feeling sit in my chest. I was going to plan something special. Something to bring us back to the way we used to be. Back when he looked at me like I was his entire world. Back when I believed him. I walked toward the staircase when I heard it. A sound. Not loud. Not obvious. A soft laugh. A woman's laugh. It wasn't Emma. It wasn't the television. It came from upstairs. My heart didn't drop immediately. It stuttered. Like it didn't want to understand. Like it was begging my brain to create another explanation. Maybe Sophie had invited someone over. Maybe Daniel had taken the day off. Maybe. I climbed the stairs slowly, each step heavier than the last. The hallway felt longer than usual. The door to our bedroom was slightly open. Our bedroom. The laugh came again. Then Daniel's voice. Low. Intimate. The way he used to speak to me in the dark. I don't remember deciding to move. My body just did. My hand pushed the door open, and time stopped. Sophie was sitting on the edge of my bed. My bed. Her blonde hair fell over her shoulders, her cheeks flushed. Daniel stood in front of her, his hands resting on her waist. Not casually, not innocently, possessively. His wedding ring caught the light. For a moment, no one spoke. They just stared at me. Daniel's face drained of color. Sophie's lips parted in shock. And I felt nothing. No scream. No tears. Just a hollow space where my heart should have been. Lina. Daniel whispered. The sound of my name on his lips shattered something inside me. What is this? I heard myself ask. My voice didn't sound like mine. It was too calm. Too steady. Sophie stood up quickly, adjusting her dress. Daniel stepped back from her as if distance could erase what I had just seen. It's not what you think, he said. Immediately. I almost laughed. It's not what you think. The most pathetic sentence in the history of betrayal. Then what is it? I asked. Silence filled the room again. Sophie looked at Daniel, waiting for him to speak. Waiting for him to fix it. Fix it. As if this was a broken vase. As if we could glue the pieces back together. Daniel ran a hand through his hair. We were just talking. In our bedroom. I asked quietly. Neither of them answered. My eyes moved to the bed. The sheets were wrinkled. The pillows displaced. The air smelled different. Not like me. Not like the lavender spray I used every morning. It smelled like her perfume. Something inside my chest began to ache. Where's Emma? I asked suddenly. At the park. Sophie whispered. I put her down for a nap earlier and then. Then you came into my bedroom. I finished. Tears welled in her eyes. Tears? As if she was the victim. Daniel stepped forward. Lena, please. Let's talk about this calmly. Calmly. 14 years of marriage. One child. Countless memories. And he wanted calm. I looked at him. Really looked at him. The man I married at 23. The man who held my hand while I gave birth. The man who once cried because he thought he couldn't live without me. When did his eyes stop belonging to me? How long? I asked. His jaw tightened. It's not. How long, Daniel? Sophie's hand moved unconsciously to her stomach. It was a small gesture. Almost invisible. But I saw it. And in that second, the world tilted. My gaze dropped to her abdomen. Her dress was loose, but now I noticed it. The subtle curve. The protective way her palm rested there. No, I whispered. Daniel closed his eyes. No, 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 she's pregnant. The words felt like glass in my mouth. Neither of them denied it. The silence was the answer. I felt my knees weaken. But I refused to fall. I refused to give them the satisfaction of seeing me break. How far? I asked. Sophie's voice trembled. 3 months. 3 months. 3 months of lies. 3 months of him kissing me goodnight. 3 months of family dinners. 3 months of pretending. I laughed then. A soft, broken sound. 3 months, I repeated. So, when you were holding my hand at Emma's school recital, when you told me you loved me, she was already carrying your child. Daniel stepped closer. Lena, I never meant for this to happen. It happened, I said sharply. My chest finally cracked open, and the pain rushed in like a flood. I trusted you, I whispered. I trusted both of you. Sophie began to cry openly now. I'm so sorry. Don't, I said coldly. Don't apologize to me. Because sorry doesn't erase nights. Sorry doesn't erase touches. Sorry doesn't erase a baby growing inside her. Daniel reached for me. Please, we can figure this out. Figure this out. As if betrayal was a math problem. As if love was replaceable. I stepped back from him. Did you love her? I asked. He hesitated. That hesitation was louder than any confession. My heart finally shattered. I saw our entire life flash before me. The tiny apartment we started in. The second-hand couch. The dreams we whispered at 2 a.m. The promise that no matter what happened, we would choose each other. He didn't choose me. He chose her. And now, she carried proof of that choice inside her body. I want you both out of my room, I said quietly. Lena? Something in my voice must have convinced him, because he stopped arguing. Sophie hurried past me, her shoulder brushing mine. I felt the warmth of her skin and wondered how many times Daniel had touched her like he used to touch me. Daniel lingered, I never stopped loving you, he said. I looked at him. You just stopped respecting me. He had no answer. When he finally left the room, I closed the door and locked it. The silence returned. But this time, it wasn't suffocating. It was devastating. I walked to the bed slowly and sat down on the edge where she had been sitting moments ago. My hands trembled as I touched the wrinkled sheets. This was where my marriage died. Tears finally spilled down my face, hot and unstoppable. Downstairs, I heard the front door open and close. They had left. I was alone. Alone in a house that suddenly didn't feel like mine. I placed a hand over my own stomach without thinking. I remembered being pregnant with Emma. The way Daniel kissed my belly. The way he whispered promises to our unborn child. And now he was doing that with her. A sob escaped me. How do you compete with a baby? How do you fight a future that's already growing? I stared at my reflection in the mirror across the room. My eyes looked older. Hollow. Like something precious had been stolen. Tomorrow was our anniversary. 14 years. I had planned to surprise him. Instead, I walked into the truth. And the truth was colder than I ever imagined. I wiped my tears slowly. This wasn't just an affair. This was a fracture that would change everything. For me. For him. For Emma. And for the child that wasn't mine. The words echoed inside my skull. Long after the front door had closed. I don't know how long I sat there on the edge of the bed. Minutes. Hours. Time had dissolved into something meaningless. The sunlight shifted across the wall, slowly creeping toward the mirror, exposing dust in the air like tiny floating ghosts. Our room looked the same. The same curtains. The same framed wedding photo. The same nightstands. But it felt contaminated. I stood up abruptly and began pulling the sheets off the bed. My hands moved mechanically, yanking the fabric free, as if removing them would erase what happened. The scent of her perfume clung stubbornly to the pillows. I carried the sheets downstairs and shoved them into the washing machine. I poured too much detergent. My hands were shaking. The machine started its cycle, loud and violent. Just like my chest, I leaned against the counter and closed my eyes. 3 months. 3 months of living a lie. My phone buzzed. Daniel. I stared at his name on the screen until it stopped ringing. Then it buzzed again. And again. Finally, I answered. What? My voice was flat. Lena, please let me come home, he said. His voice sounded desperate, afraid. Home. You already were home, I replied. Just not with your wife. Silence. I didn't plan this, he said quietly. It just happened. Nothing just happens. Affairs don't trip and fall into existence. You hired her, I said. You insisted on her. Remember, she's responsible, Lena. She's kind. Emma likes her. I know. You brought her into our house. I know. And then into our bed. His breathing faltered. I was lonely, he said after a moment. The audacity of that sentence made my stomach twist. Lonely, I whispered. You were lonely. I felt like you were distant. He continued. After Emma started school, you were always tired. We stopped talking like we used to. I pressed my fingers against my forehead. So this was my fault now. I didn't scream. I didn't defend myself. I was too tired. So you slept with the nanny, I said calmly. That was your solution. I made a mistake. A mistake is forgetting to lock the door. A mistake is burning dinner. You built a second life, Daniel. He didn't respond. Is the baby yours? I asked, even though I already knew. Yes. The word was heavy. Final. Are you going to keep it? There was no hesitation this time. Yes. Or of course. I closed my eyes again. Then what exactly do you want from me? I don't want to lose you, he said. You're my wife. You're my family. Family. The word felt like mockery. You already lost me, I whispered. I hung up before he could answer. The washing machine continued spinning. My heart continued breaking. A few hours later, I heard the front door open again. Emma's laughter floated into the house. Mama! Her tiny voice hit me like a wave. I wiped my face quickly and walked toward the living room. She ran into my arms, her little backpack bouncing against her shoulders. Mama, look! I made a flower. She held up a crumpled paper drawing. I knelt down and hugged her tightly. Too tightly. Mama, you're squeezing? She giggled. I forced a smile. Sorry, baby. Behind her, Sophie stood near the door. Her eyes were red. She looked smaller now. Fragile. Daniel wasn't with her. I'll leave now, she said softly. Her voice carried guilt. Shame. Fear. I stood up slowly, keeping Emma close to me. You won't be coming back, I said. It wasn't a question. Sophie swallowed. Daniel said we should talk. There's nothing to talk about. Her hand drifted to her stomach again. That unconscious protective gesture. I never meant to hurt you, she whispered. I looked at her. Young. 24. Soft features. The kind of beauty that doesn't even know its power. I wondered if I looked like that once. Before life. Before marriage. Before betrayal. You didn't think about me at all, I said quietly. Tears slipped down her cheeks. Emma looked between us, confused. Mama, why is Sophie crying? My throat tightened. Adults sometimes make mistakes, I said gently to my daughter. Sophie flinched at the word. Mistake. She nodded faintly and turned toward the door. For a second, I almost said something else. Almost. But I didn't. The door closed behind her. And just like that, the nanny who once helped braid my daughter's hair was carrying my husband's child, somewhere out there in the world. I lifted Emma into my arms and carried her upstairs. We sat on her bed while she talked about the park. About pigeons. About a little boy who wouldn't share his toy truck. I listened. I nodded. But inside, something dark was growing. What would I tell her one day? How do you explain that your father created another family? That you have a sibling who was born from betrayal? That love isn't always loyal. That trust isn't permanent. Emma touched my cheek. Mama, are you sad? Children always know. I forced another smile. Just a little tired. She leaned forward and kissed my face. I love you. The simplicity of it broke me. I love you too, I whispered. More than anything. That night, Daniel came home. I heard his key turn in the lock. I didn't go downstairs. I sat at the edge of Emma's bed until she fell asleep, watching her chest rise and fall. When I finally walked into the hallway, Daniel was standing there. He looked exhausted, defeated. I told her she can't work here anymore, he said. I crossed my arms. You think that fixes this? No. Where is she? At her apartment. Alone. He hesitated. Yes. The lie was subtle, but I caught it. You're already protecting her, I said softly. I'm protecting my child. The words sliced through me. My child. Not ours. Not mine. His. And hers. I stepped back. So that's it, I said. You've chosen. That's not fair. It is. He moved closer. I want both of you in my life. Both of you. As if we were options on a menu. You don't get both, I said quietly. You made sure of that. His eyes filled with something that almost looked like regret. I still love you, he said. I studied his face carefully. Maybe he believed that. Maybe he thought love was enough. But love without loyalty is just selfishness. I don't know who you are anymore, I whispered. He reached for my hand. I let him. For 1 second. And in that second, I felt the ghost of the man I married. Then I pulled away. Sleep in the guest room, I said. He nodded slowly. As he walked away, I felt the distance between us widen into something permanent. I went back into our bedroom. Our bedroom. The room that had witnessed everything. I lay down on the bare mattress, without sheets, without comfort. The ceiling above me felt unfamiliar. 14 years. And now I was sharing my husband with a woman who carried his future inside her. I turned onto my side and stared at the empty space beside me. For the first time since I was 23, I felt completely alone. And somewhere in the city, she was probably resting her hands on her stomach, dreaming of a life that was supposed to be mine. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw them together. His hands on her waist, her laugh in my bedroom, the small, protective curve of her palm over her stomach. Morning came cruelly fast. The house felt divided now, like invisible walls had been built overnight. Daniel stayed in the guest room. I could hear his footsteps, hesitant, careful, as if he were a visitor in his own home. Emma ran into our bedroom as usual, jumping onto the mattress. Mama, wake up! I forced a smile and pulled her into my arms. Her warmth grounded me. She was real. She was mine. Downstairs, Daniel was making breakfast. The smell of coffee drifted up the stairs. For a second, it almost felt normal. Almost. I walked into the kitchen holding Emma's hand. Daniel looked up. Our eyes met. There was so much unsaid between us that the silence felt heavier than words. "Morning," he said quietly. I nodded. Emma climbed into her chair, chatting happily. "Papa, Sophie said she might bring me cookies next week." Daniel froze. I felt something twist inside my chest. I knelt beside Emma. "Sophie won't be coming anymore, sweetheart." What? Emma frowned. I glanced at Daniel. He swallowed. She has other things to do now." And Emma's eyes filled with confusion. "But she promised." A promises. Children believe in them. Adults break them. "She can't always stay," I said gently. "Sometimes people leave." Did Emma's lip trembled? Did I do something bad? That question shattered me. I said quickly, pulling her close. "Never. You did nothing wrong." If only I could say that to myself. After Emma left for school, the house grew silent again. Daniel stood near the counter, staring at his coffee like it held answers. "We need to talk," he said finally. I leaned against the table, keeping distance between us. "Talk," I replied. He exhaled slowly. "I don't want a divorce." The word landed between us like a stone. Divorce. I had avoided thinking it. Avoided naming it. But now it was here. "You should have thought about that 3 months ago," I said. I was confused. "You were selfish." He didn't argue. "I never planned for her to get pregnant," he said quietly. "Did you plan for her not to?" He looked away. That was answer enough. "I don't love her the way I love you," he continued. It was physical at first. Then it just continued. Continued. Like rain. Like habit. Like betrayal. "And now there's a baby," I said. "Yes." His voice softened when he said it. Softened. I noticed that. "Do you love the baby?" I asked. He hesitated. Then nodded. "I already feel responsible," he said. "It's my child." I felt something inside me go cold. "You feel responsible?" I repeated. "But you didn't feel responsible toward your wife." I made a mistake. There's that word again. A mistake. It was becoming unbearable. "What do you want from me, Daniel?" I asked. "To forgive you. To accept her child into our lives. To pretend this didn't destroy me." He stepped closer. "I want us to try." "Try what?" "To rebuild. Rebuild. As if love was a house after a storm. But storms leave damage. Cracks. Weak foundations." "Will you leave her?" I asked suddenly. The question hung in the air. He didn't answer immediately. My heart already knew. "She's carrying my baby," he said carefully. "I can't abandon her." There it was. The truth. "You won't leave her?" I said. "It's not that simple." "It is." I straightened my back. "You chose her the moment you touched her. And you chose her again when you didn't stop. And you chose her again when she got pregnant." His eyes filled with something that looked like pain. "I'm trying to do the right thing now." The right thing would have been loyalty. Silence. He ran a hand through his hair. Frustrated. I don't want to lose my family. You already split it in half. The room felt too small. Too tight. I need space, I whispered. He nodded slowly. That afternoon, I went to see a lawyer. Saying the word divorce out loud felt unreal. Like I was talking about someone else's life. The lawyer's office smelled like paper and cold air conditioning. She spoke calmly. Professionally. Assets. Custody. Alimony. Words that sounded clinical compared to the chaos in my heart. When I stepped outside afterward, the sky was gray. I sat in my car and stared at the steering wheel. 14 years reduced to paperwork. That evening, Daniel wasn't home. I didn't ask where he was. But I knew. Emma sat beside me on the couch, watching cartoons. Her head rested against my arm. "Mama," she said softly, "hear you and Papa fighting." I swallowed. "Sometimes grown-ups disagree." I replied, "Will he leave?" The question hit too close. I brushed her hair back gently. "No matter what happens, you will always have both of us." It wasn't a lie. But it wasn't the whole truth either. Later that night, Daniel came home late. His eyes were red. He looked at me like he wanted to speak. I didn't give him the chance. "I saw a lawyer," I said. The words hung between us. His face went pale. "You're serious?" "Wes. Lena. I can't live like this," I continued. "I can't wake up every morning wondering if you're with her. I can't share you. I won't." He stepped toward me, desperation in his eyes. "Please don't do this." "Bah, you did this." He looked shattered, but so was I. "I won't fight you," he said quietly. "If this is what you want." It wasn't what I wanted. I wanted the man I married. I wanted the life we built. I wanted to go back 3 months and undo everything. But time doesn't rewind for broken hearts. "I'll move out," he said after a long silence. The words made my chest ache. "This is your house too," I replied. "Not anymore." He looked around slowly, as if memorizing the walls. "I'll get an apartment," he said. "I'll still see Emma every day." I nodded. My throat burned. He walked upstairs to pack a few things. I stood in the living room, listening to drawers opening and closing. Every sound felt final. When he came down with a suitcase, Emma appeared at the top of the stairs. "Papa," she asked. He froze. He forced a smile. "Hey, princess. Are you going on a trip?" His eyes filled with tears. I felt my own vision blur. "For a little while," he said softly. Emma ran down the stairs and hugged him tightly. "Bring me something," she whispered. He held her like he was afraid to let go. "I will." When he finally stood up and looked at me, the space between us felt infinite. "I'm sorry," he said. I believed he was. But sorry doesn't rebuild trust. Sorry doesn't erase a pregnancy. Sorry doesn't stitch a heart back together. He walked out the door. And this time, the silence that followed wasn't suffocating. It was permanent. The door closed with a soft click, but it echoed like something much louder inside my chest. Emma stood by the window, waving until Daniel's car disappeared at the end of the street. She kept waving even after it was gone, as if refusing to accept what her eyes were telling her. "Papa will come back tomorrow, right?" she asked without turning around. I swallowed the achy in my throat. "He'll see you soon." She seemed satisfied with that. Children don't measure time the way adults do. For them, soon can mean anything. That night, she crawled into my bed. Not because she was afraid. Because I was. I held her close, breathing in the scent of her shampoo, memorizing the warmth of her small body, pressed against mine. She fell asleep quickly. I didn't. My mind kept drifting to him, to where he was sleeping, to whether he was alone, to whether she was with him. 3 months pregnant. The image returned again and again. Her hand over her stomach. His soft voice when he said, "It's my child." My chest tightened. I tried to imagine what their future looked like. Doctor appointments, ultrasound photos, tiny clothes, a crib, things we once did together, things he would now do with her. I turned onto my side and stared at the dark ceiling. 14 years erased by one secret. The next morning, I filed the papers. My hand trembled as I signed my name, Lena Hassan. Soon, maybe not even that. The legal process began quietly. There were no dramatic scenes. No screaming in courtrooms. Just documents, meetings, and carefully measured conversations. Daniel rented an apartment across town. He came every afternoon to see Emma. He never stayed long. The first time I saw him after he moved out, he looked thinner. Tired. As if regret had weight. Emma ran into his arms like nothing had changed. I stood in the doorway, watching them. He avoided my eyes. "Can we talk?" he asked before leaving. I nodded stiffly. We stepped outside. The air was cool, crisp. "How are you?" he asked. The question felt absurd. "How do you think?" I replied. He flinched. "I'm trying to be there for both of them," he said quietly. Both of them? The words still cut. "Is she okay?" I asked before I could stop myself. He hesitated. "She's struggling. I almost laughed. "She knew you were married," I said. "And she still chose this." "I know." "Then let her struggle." He looked at me like he wanted to argue. But he didn't. "I don't love her," he said suddenly. I looked away. "It doesn't matter anymore," I replied. He exhaled slowly. "I never imagined losing you. You should have imagined it the first time you touched her." The silence between us stretched. "Do you hate me?" he asked. I thought about it carefully. "I don't know," I admitted. "Some days I do. Some days I just feel empty." He nodded, as if he deserved that answer. Weeks passed. The house slowly adjusted to a new rhythm. Emma split her time between us. The first night she stayed at Daniel's apartment. I walked through her empty room and felt a loneliness I had never known before. Half of my heart was sleeping somewhere else. I tried to keep busy. I reorganized closets. I painted the living room. I changed the curtains in the bedroom. But no matter how much I rearranged the furniture, I couldn't rearrange the memories. One afternoon, Daniel called unexpectedly. "She's in the hospital," he said. My stomach tightened. What happened? Stress. The doctor says she needs to rest. I didn't know what I felt in that moment. Concern, jealousy, bitterness. "Is the baby okay?" I asked. "Wes." He sounded relieved. Of course he did. "I thought you should know," he added. "Why? Why should I know?" So I could picture him sitting beside her hospital bed, holding her hand, whispering reassurances. "Thank you," I said coldly. That night I couldn't stop imagining it. The hospital room, the machines, her vulnerable and fragile. And him, by her side. The same way he once sat beside me when I was pregnant with Emma. I pressed my face into my pillow and cried silently. Not because I wanted him back, but because I realized something painful. He was building a new chapter. And I was still grieving the old one. A few days later, Emma came home from Daniel's place unusually quiet. "What's wrong?" I asked gently. She hesitated. "Papa took me to see Sophie," she said. The air left my lungs. "Oh? She has a big tummy now," Emma continued innocently. "She said I'm going to have a baby brother or sister." My vision blurred. "What did you say?" I asked softly. "I said I already have Mama." I pulled her into my arms so quickly she gasped. "I love you," I whispered into her hair. That night, after she slept, I sat alone in the living room. The truth finally settled inside me completely. This wasn't temporary. This wasn't a phase. This was a new reality. He would always be connected to her. Through that child. Through birthdays and school events, and shared responsibilities. She would never disappear. And neither would the reminder of how it all began. My phone buzzed. A message from Daniel. "She wants to apologize to you. In person." I stared at the screen for a long time. Apologize. For what? For loving my husband. For carrying his baby. For breaking my marriage. I typed back slowly. I put the phone down. Some wounds don't need conversations. They need distance. I walked into the bedroom and stood in front of the mirror. I studied my reflection carefully. The woman staring back at me wasn't the same one who walked up those stairs weeks ago. She was quieter, stronger, sad, but steady. I placed a hand over my own heart. It still hurt, but it was beating. And for the first time since that day, I understood something clearly. I had lost a husband, but I had not lost myself. That realization didn't come with fireworks or sudden strength. It came quietly. Like a fragile light flickering in the dark, the divorce was finalized on a gray morning that felt strangely calm. There were no dramatic confrontations. No shouting. Just signatures and polite nods. 14 years reduced to ink on paper. When it was done, Daniel stood there awkwardly, as if unsure whether he was allowed to look at me. "I never wanted this ending," he said softly. "Neither did I replied. But wanting doesn't change consequences. He looked older. Regret had carved lines into his face. Or maybe I was seeing him clearly for the first time. I hope one day you can forgive me, he added. Forgiveness. I used to think it meant forgetting. Now I understood it meant releasing. I'm working on forgiving myself first, I said. He didn't ask what I meant. He probably knew. For months, I had blamed myself. For being tired. For not noticing. For trusting too easily. For loving too deeply. But betrayal is never the fault of the betrayed. As we walked out of the building in opposite directions, I didn't feel triumph. I felt closure. A few weeks later, Sophie gave birth. A boy. Daniel texted me the news. His name is Adam. I stared at the message for a long time. Adam. A name that would now exist in Emma's world forever. I showed Emma gently. You have a baby brother, I said. Her eyes widened with curiosity. Can I see him? I hesitated only for a second. Yes, I said softly. One day. The first time Emma met him, I stayed in the car. I watched from a distance as Daniel carried a tiny bundle wrapped in blue. Sophie stood beside him. She looked thinner. Pale. Different. Motherhood had changed her. Emma peeked into the stroller and smiled. I saw Daniel glance toward my car. Our eyes met through the windshield. There was no anger in mine. Just distance. Months passed. The pain didn't disappear overnight, but it softened. Like a scar that no longer bleeds. I started working again. Something I had put on hold for years. I rented a small office downtown and rebuilt parts of myself that I had forgotten existed. Independence feels different when you've had to earn it back. Emma adjusted in ways that surprised me. Children are resilient. She spoke about Adam casually, sometimes excitedly. Papa says he smiles when he hears my voice. She told me once. I nodded. I never spoke badly about her father. Not because he didn't deserve it, but because Emma deserved peace. One evening, Daniel came to pick her up and lingered by the door. You look different, he said. How? Stronger. So. I almost smiled. I am. He nodded slowly. I see that now. We stood there for a moment, not as husband and wife. Just two people who once loved each other deeply. I was selfish, he said quietly. I see that clearly now. I believed him. Growth sometimes comes too late. I hope you're happy, he added. I considered the question carefully. Happy. The word felt foreign for a while. I'm healing, I said. And that's enough. And after he left, I stood by the window and watched the car drive away. This time, it didn't hurt the same way. It didn't feel like loss. It felt like release. That night, I tucked Emma into bed. Mama, she whispered. Yes. Are you sad about Papa? I brushed her hair back gently. Sometimes, I admitted. But I'm not broken. She thought about that. I don't like when people break things, she said seriously. I smiled softly. Neither do I. But you fixed yourself, she declared proudly. My throat tightened. Maybe I had. Later, I stood in front of the mirror again. The same mirror. The same room. But a different woman. I remembered the day I walked in and saw my marriage collapse in front of me. The shock. The humiliation. The unbearable pain. I remembered sitting on this very bed, believing my world had ended. It hadn't ended. It had changed. And change, even when it arrives through heartbreak, can create space for something new. I no longer imagined Daniel and Sophie at night. I no longer compared myself to her youth or her beauty. I no longer replayed the betrayal in endless loops. Instead, I focused on the quiet strength that grew inside me each day. Forgiveness didn't mean inviting him back. It meant freeing myself from the weight of what he did. One afternoon, months later, Sophie surprised me. She approached me outside Emma's school. Adam was in a stroller. He looked small, innocent, untouched by the chaos that created him. "I know you said no before," she said softly. "But I still wanted to say this." I studied her face. She wasn't the confident girl from my bedroom anymore. She looked humbled. "I am sorry," she said, "for everything." The apology didn't erase the past, but it felt sincere. I looked at the baby. He blinked up at the sky, unaware. "You made a choice," I said calmly. "And so did he." She nodded. "I'll spend my life trying to do better," she whispered. I believed that too. "Take care of him," I said quietly. "I will." We stood there for a moment, connected not by love or friendship, but by a shared reality. Then she walked away. And I didn't feel hatred, just acceptance. That night, I sat on the balcony after Emma slept. The air was cool. The city lights shimmered in the distance. I thought about love, about how it can build you, and how it can break you. I thought about the girl. I was at 23, believing marriage meant forever. I thought about the woman I was now. Forever doesn't always look like we imagine. Sometimes forever is a child's laughter. Sometimes forever is self-respect. Sometimes forever is choosing yourself when someone else didn't. I closed my eyes and let the night air fill my lungs. Daniel had been a chapter. A long one. A meaningful one. But not the entire story. And somewhere inside me, beyond the scars and the memories, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Not for him. Not for what we lost. But for myself. For the life I would build from here. Alone. But not broken.